So about 2 weeks ago, I came across this YouTuber called the Wizard Liz. Now, if you don't know who she is, she's basically Hamza or self-improvement YouTuber, but for girls. And I was quite shocked because she has 8 million followers with only about 120 videos. So that's insane, right? So as a YouTuber myself, I wanted to, hear about some of her advice as well as see her, strategy. So I clicked on one of her videos and I think it was called like how to protect your energy. And you think I'm just gonna, slander it because it sounds kind of goofy, to a man hearing that. But it was not that bad of a video. She talks about things you can use to focus on yourself. Is this what you're really thinking? And just a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm sure it is quite useful for, some women. And I went kind of down this rabbit hole of all these new self-improvement, girl YouTubers. And as I was going further and further down this, Wizard Liz, girl self-improvement rabbit hole, I just found more and more, I wouldn't say clones, but I'm not sure of the right word. They were just had similar titles, similar thumbnails, and I was quite intrigued because, I thought their videos would be just as good. And I clicked on a few, and as I would click on them, the first thing they would say is, you need to step into your spiritual side, or I just had this manifestation. I instantly clicked off because if you're a guy and you find these videos, because some of them, like, I kind of can have titles that seem helpful to guys, right? How to get confident and how to stop being lazy. I'm sure there's a decent amount of guys that watch these videos, especially if she has 8 million followers and there's tons of these different YouTubers, right? And I see these videos and look, as a guy, the world is so harsh nowadays, right? People are, struggling to pay their rent, get food. And I just wonder how helpful this is to guys. And I think it's just close to useless for guys. Right, if you're a guy struggling in his room, maybe you just went through a breakup and you're trying to manifest your way out of this or go through some spiritual connection, it's the last thing you need that's going to help you. You need some Hamza or some just really helpful video that gives you the actual advice you need, which is like, go back to the gym, bro, or whatever, right? And so I think a great thing to compare this to is like, let's say you're a 20-year-old guy and, you have a mom and a dad. It's like going to your mom and asking her, like, how to get through a breakup. She tells you these things like tap in with your spiritual side or think positively. And then you go to your dad, right? And he tells you to stop being a crybaby. And he gives you action steps that are actually going to help, even if they are quite harsh, to go to the gym or, I don't know, just gives you tasks to do that are actually useful. And now maybe this manifestation, spiritual stuff is really helpful, and you can wake up at 5 a.m., go to the mirror and say, I'm a millionaire 5 times. And maybe it might work, but for a lot of men, what we need is that brutal advice that actually works. Those action steps we can actually use. And it actually reminds me of a lot like podcasts. I'm sure we all listen to podcasts. I was actually a huge podcast advocate at the start of this year. I think from the start of this year to about a month ago, I've listened to 2,000 hours worth of podcast, which is insane. I haven't learned that much from it. I'm listening to Joe Rogan, talk to some scientists, or I might listen to another Andrew Tate podcast. And it's like, it only helps so much where, they give similar advice and it's not as actionable as picking up an amazing book or watching something so specific. Like if you watch a podcast on how to exactly lose fat, and it's like 2 hours breaking it down, or a book on how to actually do X thing, like build a car or some shit. In your life, you also want to just aim for those things that are really specific and actually help you rather than these vague, some of these vague videos, And so that's why I basically replaced all the podcasts I used to listen to with books. And on Audible, I just listened to a book. One I really like was The Daily Stoic. Like every day just gives you some quote and he basically explains it, and it's from like some of the top philosophers and my favorite philosophers as well. And so since changing my life to become more actionable to books and only specific resources that are going to help, my life has gotten so much better. I've learned so much more, and I highly recommend that. And yeah, so it's just something I wanted to talk about today, and I appreciate you guys for watching. And if you did enjoy, please subscribe so we can hit 10,000 subscribers. Thank you.